When you pick up a bar of Lifebuoy or a bottle of Lux, you're holding the legacy of empire in your hands. These everyday products are rooted in a history of British colonialism in West Africa, a story of power, profit, and exploitation. Their journey starts not in a factory, but in the palm oil groves of Nigeria, where local communities once used palm oil for food and medicine. In the 19th century, palm oil became vital for Britain's industrial revolution, fueling machines and, most importantly, soap production. This demand forged a link between British bathrooms and Nigerian forests, enriching one side while impoverishing the other. The bright packaging of today's Unilever products hides a brutal past of extraction and inequality. Behind every bar of soap is a system that transferred wealth from Africa to Europe, shaping the world we live in. As we explore this history, we see how global brands are built on foundations of power and pain. The story of soap is the story of empire, and its consequences are still with us. To understand this legacy, we must look at the Royal Niger Company. Founded in 1879 by George Goldie, it was granted a royal charter, giving it powers of government over vast Nigerian territories. The company could make treaties, raise armies, and set up its own courts, all to secure profit and British influence. Its goal, total monopoly over trade. Local traders were pushed out, prices for Nigerian producers were kept low, and resistance was crushed. The company's armed forces enforced its rules, punishing any community that dared to defy them. For over a decade, the Royal Niger Company acted as the de facto government, collecting taxes and waging wars to expand its reach. This arrangement let Britain expand its empire at minimal cost. The company did the dirty work and reaped the rewards. In 1899, Britain took direct control, buying out the company for £865,000, but the company simply rebranded as the United Africa Company, keeping its economic grip on Nigeria for decades. The legacy of corporate colonization was set. The rules of the game had been written by business, enforced by empire. The Royal Niger Company's business model was simple: extract as much wealth as possible. With monopoly power, it forced Nigerian farmers to sell palm oil, cocoa and groundnuts at rock-bottom prices. The company bought cheap, shipped raw materials to Europe and sold finished goods at huge markups. A ton of palm oil bought for $20 in Nigeria could fetch over $100 in London, the profit flowing straight to Britain. Over decades, billions of dollars worth of resources were drained from Nigeria, funding British industry and corporate empires. This wealth could have built schools and hospitals in Nigeria. Instead, it built fortunes abroad. The system kept Nigeria dependent and poor, while British companies grew rich. The colonial economy was a one-way street: resources out, profits in. The scars of this exploitation still shape Nigeria's economy today. The story of palm oil is a story of wealth taken and futures denied. The legacy of extraction endures. The fate of King Jaja of Opobo shows what happened to those who resisted. Born into slavery, Jaja rose to rule Opobo, building a thriving palm oil trade on his own terms. When the Royal Niger Company tried to force its monopoly, Jaja refused to comply. He shipped his oil directly to Liverpool, bypassing British middlemen. This defiance threatened the company's profits and British authority. In 1887, Jaja was lured onto a British warship under false promises of safe passage. Once aboard, he was given an ultimatum: surrender or see his city destroyed. Jaja chose exile to save his people, but his kingdom was shattered and the palm oil trade handed to the British. His story sent a clear message: resistance would be crushed by any means necessary. King Jaja died in exile, a symbol of African resistance and the ruthless power of empire. His legacy is a reminder of the human cost behind corporate conquest. The rise of Unilever is inseparable from the palm oil extracted from Nigeria. In Britain, Lever Brothers, founded by William Lever, needed cheap palm oil to mass-produce soap. The United Africa Company, born from the Royal Niger Company, guaranteed a steady, low-cost supply. Lever Brothers became a major customer and soon began acquiring West African trading firms, including the UAC itself. Meanwhile, Dutch margarine giant Margarine Unie also relied on African oils. In 1930, Lever Brothers and Margarine Unie merged, creating Unilever, a global powerhouse controlling the supply chain from African farms to European kitchens. The profits that built Unilever's empire were rooted in colonial exploitation, suppressed prices, broken treaties, and crushed resistance. The Unilever logo became a global symbol, but its foundation was anything but clean. The story of soap is the story of how empire built brands. Every product on the shelf carries this hidden history. The legacy of extraction lives on in the brands we use every day. Nigeria's story was not unique. It was part of a British imperial blueprint perfected in India. The East India Company began as a trading firm but grew into a military and political power, conquering vast territories. In India, the British dismantled local industries and forced farmers to grow cash crops for export, buying cheap and selling high. The result, a massive transfer of wealth from India to Britain, funding the Industrial Revolution and global expansion. Economist Utsa Patnaik estimates that $45 trillion was drained from India between 1765 and 1938. The parallels with Nigeria are clear. Chartered companies paved the way for colonization. Local economies were restructured and resistance was crushed. The wealth of the colonies built the metropole, leaving deep economic scars. Unilever's story in Nigeria is just one chapter in a global pattern of exploitation. The methods were deliberate, a formula for turning resources into empire. In 1960, Nigeria gained independence, but the economic legacy of empire remained. The United Africa Company, now part of Unilever, continued to dominate the Nigerian economy as UAC of Nigeria plc. The structures of extraction persisted. Nigeria supplied raw materials, bought finished goods, and profits flowed abroad. The patterns of dependency created by colonialism were not easily broken. Today, Unilever's global reach is built on the wealth extracted during the colonial era. The brands on our shelves tell a story of convenience, but also of exploitation and resistance. The question remains, can companies built on colonial profits ever truly atone for their past? The shadow of empire still hangs over global trade. The story of soap is a story of power, profit, and the enduring legacy of empire. And it's a story we're all still part of every time we reach for a bar of soap.